Yo, 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 man. Welcome back to another episode of All in All with Alex. I'm your host, Alex. Today we got a very special guest. I'm going to let her introduce herself.
I am Gabby. Everybody knows me as Gabby, Pinky, whatever you want to call me. However you know me.
Okay. So today, we're going to focus on uh, different stages of mental health. Whether that's depression, whatever the case may be, however a person is feeling, whatever a person went through, and whatever they did to, particularly whatever Gabby did to help her cope with it or to help her get by it. So, this is for you all, anyone out there that's going through anything and you don't know how to get through it, or you just want to be inspired by somebody else's story so that can motivate you to actually get through what you're going through. That's what we're here for today. So I guess we'll just start it off, Gabby. Tell us a little bit about yourself first, and then after that, we'll go into the specifics of where did your depression or pain or hurt or whatever come from.
Okay. A little bit about me. I'll keep it basic. Born and raised, Clinton, Alabama. 4 children, beautiful, beautiful children. And right about now, that's about it. That's all that
Okay.
encapsulates me right about now. Getting into mental health, I can't really pinpoint where my journey started. And that's something I plan on exploring in therapy, which I do recommend. I recommend therapy off top.
Let's start there though, because you have people specifically in the black community that the word therapy, they push it away. They like, oh man, you don't need therapy. Like they make it like you weak if you have to get therapy.
Right. Well, that's kind of cultural. I think a lot of us are coming away from the old school thinking of what goes on with our family stays within our family. So that's one thing that we had to break through to even start discussing therapy, because you're essentially sitting down telling somebody all your business.
Yeah, but see, like it was to me, it was kind of worse in the black community. Like you see a lot of and I've been around every different ethnic group and all that, and it's like it's more embraced in other communities than it is the black community.
Right.
The black community, I guess, because going through in history the things that we went through, we don't want to feel like we got to rely on somebody else outside of the people that we already got in our inner circle.
Right. And I think there's a shame factor too. It's like, oh, we overcame so much and now we can't overcome a few life problems. And it's so much more than just, oh, I'm going through something today. And so seeing it as something that not only impacts your big picture, but your day to day.
Right.
It is in fact a day to day struggle. It's not just I woke up this morning and I'm sad about something, because I'm sure you've heard this. What you got to be depressed about? If I could tell you, I promise you, I could figure it out myself, and I may not know. And so it's not looking at it as a one time problem or something to be solved. It's something that has to be delved into. And so you're absolutely right. Within our community, it's getting someone to get past those layers, getting past some of the stigma, not seeing it as a other people problem.
Right.
No, this is an all people problem.
Right.
Everybody goes through it.
Yeah, I agree.
And so I first had to get past my own dogma around it. And I had to realize, hey, this is not just something that popped up this morning when I woke up. This is something I'm going through. This is consistent. These are thoughts that I'm having consistently throughout my day, my week, my month. And if I look back for enough years, there's a pattern that's going on here. So maybe I need to look at this from a different angle.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's definitely a different way to look at it that most people probably don't even think about. So I guess we can kind of lead into, why you're going to take the route of going to therapy.
Probably because what I've tried in the past has worked up to a point. And when I say that, it works so far and then it doesn't work. So if you have a trained professional in an area, what better person than to consult than this trained professional? If I'm having trouble with my vision, you know, Granny might have a solution, but at some point I got to see an eye doctor.
Yeah.
And I said that because I wear glasses.
No, you good, you good. I
But
trust
you know that's something that's familiar to me. If I need help with my vision, I'm going to see an eye doctor. If I need help with my mind, why would I not go see a mind doctor to help me with that?
Yeah. I mean, I agree. It's definitely something that and that's why people call it mental health, because, you know, if you got something wrong physically, you're gonna go get it checked out.
Right.
So if you got something wrong mentally, it's the same way. Your mental health is the most important health that you got, and people don't really understand that. So that's what another reason I'm doing this series is, because I want to raise more awareness on mental health, because we have too many people going through situations and they feel like they're in it alone because maybe they don't have family, or maybe they don't have somebody they feel like they can trust or whatever. But that's why, you know, having you on here, you coming on here telling your story, how you dealt with it, how you're going to continue to deal with it, it may motivate that person to say, you know what, I'm going to do it just like Gabby did it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And if they can, when this video, you know what I'm saying, when this video drops, if they can get under this video and comment and say, you know what, Gabby, your story inspired me. It helped me make it through blah, blah, blah.
And if there's only one person, like, if I can help anybody, just one somebody, I will have felt like whatever I went through up to now was worth it.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm pretty sure it will help someone. You know, it may even help more people than you think, but some of them may not just come forward and say it because they still don't want the world to know they were depressed. You know what I'm saying? Depression is not something to be ashamed of. Having mental health issues is not something to be ashamed of. You know what I'm saying? Like, to really be a strong person, or to really be empowered, is really realizing what you're dealing with and going to somebody to get it corrected, or to be able to maintain, you know what I mean? Like, to be able to figure out a way to maneuver around it to get where you need to be, or to ease up the burden or the pain or whatever that you're going through. That's the real empowerment or whatever. So, but anyway, so I know you said you really didn't, you know, of course you didn't wake up one day and all of a sudden it was just like, boom, I got mental health problems. So with you looking at it, and a lot of times us being the ones in the particular situation, it's harder for us to kind of look back and really think about what really triggered it.
Right.
So I want you to kind of just go back and just say, okay, well, you know, life was good until I was 8 and then this happened. You know what I'm saying? That'll kind of like, just to kind of do a little timeline for them to kind of understand, like, what led up to you today, to you feeling like, you know what, I need to go see somebody.
Okay, so I was doing some self-reflection the other day, and I realized, you know, I didn't have a bad life. I had a pretty good life compared to some people. But there were bad moments. And so when it's spread out, you kind of don't connect the dots. And so I began just to reflect on certain things that happened that kind of put something into my mind. And whether it got pushed back, you know, to the back of my head or not, it was there. And so when the next not so good thing would happen, okay, they're connecting. And then they're connecting. And so maybe around when I became a teenager, I'll say 16 is when I really started becoming aware that there were some things that were kind of affecting me that I didn't think would. They would just kind of come up out the blue. It'd be random thoughts, some past trauma that I thought, oh, I got over that. Or, you know, I dealt with that. You know, apparently I didn't, because now I'm sitting on the couch eating cereal and this thought came out of nowhere. Like, you know, where did that come from? And so it started there, that kind of awareness that there's some thoughts that keep circling back and I'm not sure why. Then I started noticing how I would handle stress. Any little thing would kind of set me off. And, you know, back when I was 16, the word trigger wasn't really a hot word at that time. You know, people didn't talk about their triggers. Now people recognize a trigger in everything, but back then that wasn't a word I could grab onto because we didn't have it.
Right.
And so it really started like that. It was just the little things that I would notice, like, well, that situation really didn't affect me the last time it happened. Now all of a sudden I'm handling it in a way I didn't think I would. You know, I don't usually react like this. You know, that's not normal for me. So it begins kind of with you noticing things that are not your normal. It progressed, I would say, and I told you I would be brutally honest. Like, if I'm gonna tell my story, I'm gonna tell my story.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
When I was 17, I went through a miscarriage, and I had some family members that told me I was lucky. I'm a senior in high school, so I'm lucky this happened because now my future is not going to be impacted. I don't have to worry about missing out on college, and I didn't feel that way, and so I kind of felt myself sinking into like this mental hole where I could be happy on the outside and I can put on my happy face, but then on the inside, when I was alone and when it was quiet and everything was still, it came back to me, and it was almost like I couldn't shake these emotions that I was going through. I'm being told I'm lucky, but why do I still feel so sad? I could understand the logic of them saying it, but emotionally, it's just not clicking. So that was another big thing that happened. And then it just builds from there. So I believe when people begin in therapy, they'll start seeing that a lot of things from their childhood kind of laid the foundation.
Right.
A shaky one, but it laid the foundation, and everything built from there. And so, fast forward, normal young adult problems, relationship issues, and I just saw myself really cracking to the point of now I don't even recognize myself when I come out of my normal and I react in a way that's off script. I'm like, okay, that's really not me. There's something else that's going on. Like, why do I feel this way? Why is this affecting me? I could shake this off, and now it's got a hold of me for stretches of time. And I started to look up symptoms of depression, symptoms of other mental health disabilities, and I really started probably in my early 20s entertaining the thought that maybe I have a mental health issue, and maybe just talking to my best friend about it ain't gonna get it. Maybe I actually need to start looking into help. Trying to get this short, so we're gonna jump forward again. I lost my mom in 2016, and there was an incident about 2 months later in October, and it triggered me. Again, this was not a hot word around where I was. Now, maybe somewhere else around that time, but where I was, trigger wasn't a hot word. So I can look back and say, okay, that triggered me. I had already started antidepressants, and after that incident, I went to my sister's house and I downed the bottle.
So before, I don't want to cut you off. But,
Right, no.
But you said you had already started antidepressants, so you had already
Right.
seen a therapist by then, or
No, actually,
or
and this
did
is
a regular doctor try to prescribe?
yeah, and this is why, like, it'll all come full circle, but this is why I suggest therapy, because I had gone to my primary care physician, and I had told him, hey, I'm feeling this way, I'm feeling that way, do you think there's something you can give me? And he's, sure, let's try these new antidepressants that's coming out, and I just got this in the office, I think it'll be a good fit for you. Cool. He's a doctor, so I'm gonna take his advice, and I took the pills and I took them home. I didn't really see much change. I tried to give it a chance, and then, like I said, I got triggered, and I had a suicide attempt, a near successful suicide attempt. So I ended up at Crossbridge psychiatric facility for 5 days. And that was back in October of 2016.
So, so going through what you went through, and being, how did you feel whenever you got put into the psychiatric facility?
Honestly, it was a relief. And that's so weird to say, but it was a relief because in this place, there's this hope of getting help. Like, because there's really something wrong with me if I felt like I wanted to just take myself out. Like, at this time I had 2 children. And so If I think I'm such a detriment to their lives that I don't need to be there anymore, there's something wrong. So if they can put me somewhere that's going to get me some help, I'm all down for it. Like, I wanted to be upset about being there, but honestly, I needed it. I needed to be there. I needed to be somewhere where people were trained to see what I was going through and look at it a different way. Coincidentally, I was misdiagnosed. I did not have just depression. When I left with a diagnosis of bipolar 2 and anxiety disorder. So there were layers that I didn't even recognize.
Right.
When it comes to bipolar, there is the depression that is associated with it, but there's also an opposite, and it's the mania. And it may look like hyper productivity. And so you don't think that's a bad thing. You think that's good. Oh, if I can go all week on 3 hours of sleep and get everything I need done, then I'm good. That's not something to be, alarmed about. But apparently it was, because that's not normal. So I left with a proper diagnosis versus what I thought was, the essence of my mental health issues. There were other things that I was ignoring because I didn't know to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, you probably just thought that was, oh yeah, I'm young, I can do
right.
this.
If I can clean the house and cook dinner,
yeah,
all that off for 2 hours of sleep, I'm good.
Yeah. You don't really look at the even more pressure and weight you're putting on your mental,
right,
as well as your physical. I mean, your physical, your body is only as strong as your mind. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So if your mind can only put up with so much, your body gonna eventually collapse. That's why we rest. That's why we sleep. We sleep to ease the mind, not necessarily the body.
Right.
Because our body is gonna go as long as our mind can go. If you fed up with something or you tired of dealing with something mentally, that will wear you out more than anything.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, I mean that's different. I mean and I understand the effect of losing a parent because I lost my mom, in 2012, from cancer. So at the time, I was only 20 years old. You know what I'm saying? And you don't think at 20 years old you're gonna lose your mother. You
right.
I'm at least half the time in the 40s. You know what I'm saying? Like, and looking back, it's like, dang, I don't feel like I really. It's like I knew who my mama was, but it's certain things that you want to ask your parents. Like when you get older, you want to ask them, well, you always whooped me when I was a kid. How was you as a kid? Was you bad? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's certain things that you want to ask, but it's like, it's too late. You know what I'm saying?
It is. And grief is probably one of the biggest things that we ignore. And I'm not knocking anybody's religious beliefs, but there are some things you can't pray away. Like, you really have to face them. And, prayer might be the beginning of it, but it's not the end all. Like, you really got to face that thing.
Yeah.
And grief looks different for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. There's two guarantees in this world: death and taxes.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So,
amen.
So, I mean, it's just one of those things. I mean, regardless, we can pray, we can do whatever. Even if prayer may work that particular time, because it's not that person's time, we all gotta go one day.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's really no way around it. There's ways to delay it. Maybe we can do something. Maybe we can do something when it comes to doctor wise or whatever, and then praying also. But other than that and asking the good Lord, I mean, there ain't really much we can do. You know what I'm saying? So
right, and then you can't pray emotions away.
Oh no, not at all. You're gonna feel what you feel, and
right. And I think we run from that. We run from actually feeling. Prayer is a feel good. It's supposed to make you feel better after the fact, but actually dealing with your emotions hurts. Initially, it can hurt, and it can hurt bad.
Oh yeah.
And I think we run from that pain. We see it as a bad thing, and pain is not always bad.
No, because all the pain and all the heartbreak and the all of the being told no, you need all that so that way you can appreciate more when you get to a situation where you want to be in.
Right.
Or when you get that job you finally wanted. You had to deal with all these other jobs or fast food places or whatever. Now you finally got what you wanted. You know what I'm saying? You had to deal with not getting that promotion to finally get a job at another facility as a manager. You know what I'm saying? So you had to know what it was to go through that and to be told no and to keep going, and just keep pushing, and you finally get to where you want to be.
Absolutely.
So, so okay. So I mean, like I said, I definitely feel, you know, I sympathize with you in that particular situation or whatever. So, you know, it's definitely different though. So like I said, I mean, you know, you gotta it's certain things you gotta go through to know how it feels once you get to where you want to be, you know, and that's what makes success so much more, you know, appealing and so much more appreciative once you get there, because you realize, man, I really started from the bottom. Like,
right.
I really started there and I took this long journey, and yeah, it was bumps in the road on the way. You know, it's potholes everywhere. You go down the street, there's potholes. You're gonna hit potholes, but what's gonna happen when you hit that pothole? Your car gonna bounce in that mud, it's gonna come right back up. Now you back on the road, and you gotta treat life the same way. So you know what I'm saying. So with that though, with you being in all that pain, like, so that was 2016, correct? Was that?
Yes, that was 2016.
Okay, so when your mom died, and then the suicide attempt,
yes,
everything was all 2016.
Yes.
Even well, yeah, of course the pills was too, because it was with the depression, with the suicide attempt. So going from 2016 to now we're in 2023. So 7 years later, what changed from that psych ward visit to where you are today?
Honestly, a lot, and it was kind of like a ping pong match. It went back and forth, and I want people to really realize that medicine is not a quick fix. It's an aid. It's an aid in your journey, and there will be times where you have to kind of figure out what works for you. Like I said, I was treating one thing, not knowing I need to be treating two others. And so from 2016 to 2017, I was medicated. I left with about 3 different medications from the facility, but I didn't really like the idea. Like, I'm still wrestling with my upbringing that told me I don't need pills to function in everyday life. And so I would kind of talk myself out of taking it, and then I'd get back on it because, well, I done fell off again. And so I really, really, really want people to understand that this is a journey. Like, it literally is a journey. Your mental health is a journey. And it's not gonna look like one linear series of events. It can go back and forth. There may be things that you need that you don't know you need until something else happens. And God forbid, if anybody is considering suicide, there's a suicide hotline that you can call. Like, go and talk to somebody, tell somebody. You know, I just wanted to put that out there right now. But it may look like that. You know, that's a very real possibility. That's the reality of it. You know, at the time, I convinced myself that the world around me would be better off without me in it. So, you know, I'm not going to pretend like because I got a pill, I was all good. It was holly jolly, and I've been living my best life ever since. I have not. You know, there have been other things that happened. There have been bumps in the road. I've lost other people. I've had to deal with grief, you know. So it's not one size fits all, and my journey does not look like your journey, and vice versa. So don't think that therapy by itself or medicine by itself is going to be a quick fix, and then maybe it will be. You know, you never know.
Yeah. I'm just gonna butt in for a quick second. I would agree it's definitely not gonna be a quick fix, because at the end of the day, there's no cure for any mental health issue.
Right.
There's no cure for depression. There's no cure for any of these other things that people go through, because it has a long-term effect. It can last for your entire life. It can start when you're a baby and last for your entire life. So just because you're taking medicine, that's not going to make it a cure. Just because you're going to therapy, that's not going to make it a cure. It's just going to make you be able to deal with it a little bit easier. And to me, what I feel like, I've never been on it, but I'm just going to tell you what I think.
Right.
I think the medicine is probably more so your mind doesn't think about some of the stuff you've been through. Because the more you think about it, the more you're going to be more in your feelings or start thinking those other kind of thoughts.
Absolutely.
So if the medicine can slow your mind down so your mind ain't, oh, it's over here, it's over here. Oh, man, That happened when I was 8. That happened when I was 17. Oh, 3, 2. You know what I'm saying?
And that's exactly what it does. It is an aid. It helps you get to a point of level. Like just get to a level point to where you're not all the way up, you're not all the way down. It helps you find a midpoint. And you need that to kind of map out your next steps. And so I did try therapy several times. And that's something else. Like I cannot express enough how it's literally a journey. I can't go from here to Panama City in 5 minutes. Right. And so you're not going to get from, a place of needing help to being like, cured. Like you said, it's not a cure in 5 days, 5 months, 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
especially when it's a lifelong thing, like
right,
like for example, yours, you really was dealing with it a lot longer than you really said, because when you started out, you said at 16 is when you really started entertaining the thought. So that means something happened prior to 16.
Right.
So you got to think about it. You're probably, I know you probably don't ask women their age or whatever, you know what I'm saying?
33.
So but see, that's half of your life. So
right.
So that means at least half of your life you've been dealing with mental health issues.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying? That's
unaware. I'm unbeknownst to me.
That's what I'm saying. So, and you didn't start to realize it until you were 16. That's when you started looking it up and being interested in what is this? What is wrong with me? So, I would even say it probably back to like maybe as soon as you turn a teenager, maybe 13, 14-ish area, is probably when it really started for you. You know what I'm saying? Because you just started thinking about it at 16 when you started becoming more of age and realizing certain things more. So you got to think, you're talking 19, 20 years of dealing with depression.
Absolutely. And that's another topic for another day, but upbringing.
Oh no, we got time today.
And parenting and recognizing these things in your children and kind of coming out of our ego. Because every parent's doing the best that they can. Every good parent is doing the best they know how to do. There's no manual for this. We're all just kind of winging it to a certain point. But you kind of have to come out of your ego as a parent and realize that there are certain things that are happening in your child or children's lives that are impacting them in a way that you don't see yet and that they don't know to recognize yet. And so I can think back to some things that happened when I was 8 years old that might have been a catalyst to some mental issues that I deal with today. And it took some self-awareness. And so as a parent, that means now I have to be vigilant in recognizing when there are some things that I've gone through with my children around me that may be affecting them in a way I don't see yet.
Right.
And so, you don't know where it starts. I say I could think back to 8, but what if it was before then?
Yeah.
And it can be the smallest things. It can be simply the way that you're talked to as a child. Like you mentioned earlier, you want to ask your parents, well, was you bad when you was little? Because I got a whooping for that. What you do?
Yeah.
Was you doing the same thing? Why you whoop me for it? And so it kind of gives you an insight as to maybe changing the way that things were done with your children. And hopefully every parent is thinking, like, let me do better than what was done for me. Even if you feel like you had it all good, let them have it even better.
Yeah.
And especially, those of us that think, we have it all the way good all the time. So let me make sure that I'm not inflicting the same thing on them.
Yeah, and that's part of it. Us being, when you're a parent, that's your ultimate goal. Is like, okay, I want to make sure they don't deal with what I dealt with.
Right.
I want to make sure they have a better life than me. But you got to always remember, yeah, you may be dealing with mental health issues, but are you a bad person?
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay, so even if they went through some of the things you went through, that don't necessarily mean that they're going to grow up and be a bad person either.
Right.
So I look at it like this. Me growing up, I didn't always have everything I wanted. I had everything I needed to survive, though.
Right.
So with me doing the things with my kids is, okay, you're going to have everything you need. You got a roof over your head. You got lights, water, all that. But just because you ask me to go somewhere or ask me, can you do something, don't mean I'm going to say yes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Not necessarily saying you are, but I'm just saying, like, just I try not to overdo it, because sometimes
Right.
you'll go through certain things and you're like, I'm just gonna go the extra mile and make sure they have this. But sometimes that can do the opposite effect of what you're really trying to do.
And no, not so much in the material. Like, I don't mean so much in material. I mean so much as their mental health. I mean so much as their
Asking certain questions and
foundation.
stuff like that.
Yeah, their foundation, their emotional upbringing, more so than the physical, more so than the material.
Gotcha.
Such as if you see, because, I think we've all heard this, that, you can't blanket parent your children. They're individuals. So what might work for this child may not so much work for this child.
Right.
And so one of my children is very, very in touch with their emotional being. So they're a very emotional child. So I can say something and think it's not, so bad. And, I try to open up a space for my kids to say, hey, Mom, that hurt my feelings. That kind of hurt me. Whereas my parents were more so in like a sort of a perpetual survival mode. They ain't got time to worry about feelings. They got to make sure we eating. They got to make sure we got somewhere to stay. They got to make sure ain't nothing getting cut off. They're always busy. They're always working. And so since I have the privilege of not having to always be away from my children, I can focus on things like that.
Yeah.
I can pay more attention to their mental and their emotional. And so now I recognize that this is my emotional child. This child, he don't care. He all right. All I got to do is tell him something. He don't nothing bother him. He ain't upset about nothing. And I check. I ask questions. I make sure, like, you good? You good? I'm fine. I'm straight. And then I have another one. One of my younger children, me and her dad, we had to sit down and ask her, do you feel like you don't get enough attention from us? There's such a thing called middle child syndrome.
Yeah.
Where you feel like you're stuck in the middle. The first one was the only for however long. And then you got the baby that gets all the attention. And then there's that one stuck in the middle that feels like, oh, I just get ignored. I'm just a fly on the wall. Don't nobody be studying me. And so she's in the middle. And, we really had to sit down and I had to step back because I was getting frustrated. And I had to think, well, maybe there's something else going on. Maybe she's not just acting out. And she was honest with us. I don't feel like I get that much attention.
Yeah.
Okay, that's something I can fix.
Right. But see, and that shows, to me, that shows good parenting skills, because with you guys making it open enough for her to be able to physically say it, because most people are not going to admit something like that, especially not as a child. So for her to come out and say that means you guys have a strong child.
And it was a process. It was a process to get myself there as a parent, and to bring him in and see if he would be open to doing the same thing. He had even older parents than I did, this particular child's father. So, definitely those old school black parents don't care nothing about how you feel.
Yeah, what you say?
I'll tell you where you take your feelings. So that's why I say, I didn't have access to certain words way back when. I didn't have access to certain thought concepts way back when. And now that we do, things like this podcast, this episode is possible because now we can talk about it. Now, we can put it out in the open. Nobody's going to be shunned for it. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's progress being made.
Right.
In the state of our community's mental health, but we still have so far to go. But it starts with little steps like that. Like, it took people around me and myself to check myself into not carrying on bad habits. Excuse me.
You good.
And habits are learned. They are learned. So, these generational habits of kind of throwing children to the wayside, telling them to be seen and not heard, things like that. Thank you. It takes some self-awareness.
See, we treat our guests good.
I see that. I'm loving it over here.
We treat our guests good over here.
It takes some self-awareness, and that doesn't come overnight.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. You know what I mean? And, like you said, everybody's journey is different. But for you the biggest thing is, like they always say, the biggest step to quote-unquote recovery is first admitting you have a problem.
Right.
If you can admit you have a problem, you can do anything in the world.
Right.
Because nobody wants to be at fault for something or feel like they're the reason this happened, or feel like something is wrong with them, so they think other people are gonna look at them a certain way. So for you to be able to admit that and say, okay, I'm okay enough to admit this. Now, okay, you're okay enough to get to a point where you probably feel the happiest you ever felt in life.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Everybody can get there. Everybody can be happy. Everybody can to get the things in life that they want to get. It's enough happiness out here for everybody in the world.
Absolutely.
So,
and you have to determine what that looks like for you, and not base it off of someone else's idea of happiness. And I think that was another thing. I dealt with a lot of feelings of being a disappointment, not so much being disappointed, but feeling like I was the cause of other people's disappointment. So that goes back into pre-adult age.
Yeah. I mean, you know that, and you know, especially like when you're younger and you probably have earlier relationships. You know, you may deal with narcissistic people that you know they feel like, okay, they're never at fault for anything.
Right.
You're always the problem. You know what I'm saying? And so that right there will take a toll on your mental, especially if you just deal with it and push it away.
Right.
Lock it up inside you till one day, next thing you know, you're throwing some hot grits on somebody. You know what I'm saying?
Grits.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you pulling them a deal, you know what I'm saying?
And it can look like that, like you would really be just living your life, and something happens and you think it's the most mundane thing in the world that could happen, but the way that you react to it is so out of your norm that you're like, wait a minute, something is wrong. Like, I need to take a step back, because that ain't me. That's not, you know. And you know, that might be your first indication that, hey, something is off,
Right.
and maybe I need to check on what that is.
Yeah. No, I agree. So you took us through the story.
Right.
You took us up through, you know, even different ways that you're trying to parent your children to make sure that they don't deal with some of the feelings that you dealt with.
Right.
Do you feel at this point, you know, the exact starting point that you can pinpoint the most of where it happened? Like, do you remember what certain event triggered it? Like, before, you know, of course, you know, we talked about, you know, you started realizing at 16, but before that time frame, what do you, just looking back now, trying to think back, because a lot of times when you go through certain things, it hides other memories that you may have.
Right.
I know for me, I dealt with some of the same things. It's like, you know, when I a lot of things were a blur because of me getting hit with big things like my mama passing away,
Right.
or me having a son and he passed away at 2 months and 2 days old. Like, you know, at that time I was 18 and 20 years old respectively. So, you know, being that young and dealing with something like that, it affects you a certain way. So,
Right.
do you think that you may know what event triggered it before then, or are you still trying to find that out?
I can say I'm closer to the origin. Again, that comes with just some self-reflection and looking back over the life that I did have. Though I said before, it wasn't a bad life. There were just some bad things that happened in life. But even more than that, foundationally, I believe we get into a whole nother topic, but I'll say the environment of my upbringing.
Gotcha. That's understandable.
And as far back as I can remember, there was just a lot of moving around. You know, whether it was when my parents, whether it was when my parents were together or when they were not together. Right. It was just a lot of moving around, never really feeling settled into one space for too long. Right. You know, there were times we had to live with family members, whether we were together as a family, my mom, my dad, and me, or not. Right. Sometimes we had to move in with family together. Sometimes we were separate. I was with my mama. Sometimes I spent a little more time with my daddy. And you know, that I feel like was the basis of that shaky ground kind of being formed up under me.
Yeah. I mean, that's understandable. I mean, you know, I just want to try to get as close as we can, so that way people that's out there watching can realize, hey,
right, because it can be something as simple as you moved around a lot as a child.
yeah.
And so you feel unsettled in life. And so you may hold on to situations for a lot longer than what you may need to, because this has been a constant for you for X amount of years.
Yeah.
Even to, I guess, something that everybody can understand, a relationship. I might stay in a relationship too long because I don't like change, because I experienced so much change when I was younger that I just want to hold on to something that I know, even if it's bad, I know it's going to be bad. I know this is going to be bad. So I'm cool with it because I know it. It's not unknown to me.
So you stick around with that narcissistic person because you're like, you know what? I don't want to change. I done been with it so long.
I'm used to it, it's no big deal. I'm used to it. And see, you don't think back to how many different places did I live before the age of 10?
Yeah. So
did I have to, did I move schools, 45 times in my life period? That for some of those military kids out there, was I ever settled? How many different daycares did I attend? How many different people did I have to learn to be around before the age of 12?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that definitely has a big effect. So I think for the most part we covered everything, unless you have something else that you want to convey out to the audience. But if you don't, I would just say any final words to anybody out there that's dealing with any kind of depression, mental health, whatever issues, like any final words that you want to tell them?
Don't be afraid to admit that you're not okay. There's nothing wrong with being not okay. You don't want to stay not okay, but there's nothing wrong with noticing that, hey, I feel like I have an issue. I feel like I might need help with that issue. There's so many resources out now where it is less of a hassle or issue or a problem to get help than it was, any other time. Also, get a support system. And I mean some real deal heavy hitters that are going to be in your corner through thick and thin, because as much as we like to look at, the good and the positive and what can come out of going through this journey and getting closer to the end of the struggle, there are going to be some days that look really bad. They look really bad, really hard. There's going to be some times that you are really in pain and you may not even be able to verbalize it to people exactly what you're feeling. Everybody wants to know why you're feeling this way, and you might not know the why at that time. And so you're going to need people in your corner that, regardless of what that looks like, they love you through it. And when I say love you through it, I mean love you through it. Because there may not be, oh, well, she was bad this day, but I think she's going to be okay tomorrow. Them tomorrows might stretch.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, just don't be afraid to admit you have a problem. Get you a support system and give yourself some grace. It is okay. Even when it don't feel like it's okay, it's going to be okay.
Right.
Trust me.
Yeah. So, you guys heard it here first from Gabby herself. I appreciate you coming on to tell your story.
Appreciate you having me.
And you guys just watched All in All with Alex. See ya.